Howdy y'all, this is Battle Axe, Chris. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I got some more quick tips here for you today. The cool thing we got going on is that we're going to be doing some ironing of edges. What I got here is my workbench. Got a vertical stabilizer / rudder to play around with. The ironing edges thing is something that I did some research on. I've seen like little quips about it over on the forums. You've seen a little bit of it on YouTube. I've seen people not actually do it, but I've seen their final results in pictures and in person of what the ironing the edges does. And it's a little bit more effective than the glue smearing thing that we usually have going on. Normally what we would do with the glue smearing thing is you'd have like a raw edge of your foam board looking just like this. And we'd take a little card. This is actually something that I saw on Flight Test. Take a little card like this, cut a notch into it, and we would smear some glue down here along the raw edge, and then of course this would ride along the edge and smear the glue in. Now that's all fine and dandy up until the point that you know, you're adding weight. It's also a little bit messy. You got to work quickly. Sometimes it doesn't work out well, and sometimes you have to go back over it with the hot tip off your glue gun to make everything nice and even. Advantages to ironing the edges: number one, you're not adding any weight. Number two, you're actually sealing off the edges, so you don't get any like delamination or anything like that. Number three, the one I like the most, is that it actually makes it more aerodynamic, so you don't have a raw edge sitting there just waiting to peel on you. And last and final one, it actually adds strength to the edges as well. So it's not only just the edges, but you could do like hinge lines and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, without further ado, I'm going to turn my iron on here. Doesn't take long to preheat. Without further ado, let's just get to it, and I'll show you guys how it's done. It's super simple, super easy, and it all happens right away. So I'm just going to mount my camera. Hope you guys have a good angle right there. I think that's about right. Looks good to me. All right, so we got the iron warming up right now. What I'm going to show you guys first is going to be the straight edge part. And I'll do both sides of that straight edge, and then I'll come around and I'll show you how to do a curve. The curve part itself is, it's got another step to it, but it's actually pretty simple on its own. And then what I'll do is I'll cut in my hinge line, and I'll show you how to do a hinge line as well, so you don't have to do any cutting of the beveling, that kind of stuff with the razor, that kind of thing, right? So let's just kind of get to it and see what happens. Check the heat on my iron, nice and hot. So on my iron, what I've done is I've kind of set it to the lowest part of the steam setting. It's just a regular clothes iron, got a Teflon plate to it. I'm obviously not using any steam or anything like that, but you don't need a lot of heat. A lot of times people will tell me, oh, turn your iron right up to high, lay it on there, wait for it to sink in and let it go. Not going to do that. I tried that and it actually turns out all wrinkled. What I like to do is just do a couple quick passes and just let it gradually kind of get the curve that I'm looking for. So as far as your iron goes, what you're going to find is you're going to get your most specific heat gravity right on the widest part of the iron. So if you want things to happen fast, use it down here. You want to do more detail-y stuff, use the tip. It's a little less heat, it's a little less heat gravity, and it'll actually get into more uniform places, right? So anyway, one thing I'd like to do is take my iron and put the piece right on the edge of the table, just so I have something where I could lean down with, right? I don't want to be right on top of it or anything like that. So just with the iron, I'm going to set it on there, and I'm just going to go back and forth just slowly. And you can see it's already starting to actually do the bevel in there, right? Do one more pass. You can see I almost got it. One more pass again. And if you take a look, you can see how we got that beveled edge right there. Now what's going to happen is the paper is going to come down into the foam. Because it's actually melting the foam on the inside, it's actually turning the foam into more of a plastic, so it'll actually stiffen up that edge as well, right? So a lot of you people that are used to doing the double control surfaces, or the vertical stabilizer, or the H stabilizer, it actually does strengthen it up where you don't almost need to do the doubling. But the cool thing is that this will make it just as aerodynamic. Now, if I go ahead and I do the other side, you will see, as I get a couple passes going here, getting the first one down, Second one, might take a third. I kind of want to match it up to the other side. Those pieces of paper from either side are now going to start coming together in the center. I got a little area here where it needs a little bit more. So you see how I'm using the tip. Then once it's evened out, I'm going to go over another even pass again. So now you can see how those edges are actually coming together, right in the center. I might give it just a little bit more on either side so they come together completely. And you can go back and forth, it'll remelt the foam and bring those edges together. Now if you take a look, you can actually see right down the center, I got a nice even ironed out edge. It's nice and rounded, but it does leave a little bit of that foam that's melted into that plastic. There is a bit of a rough serrated sort of edge right here. So at this point, what I'll do is I'll take a block that has a bit of sandpaper. This is 100 grit sandpaper, not too rough. But the cool part is that all you're going to do is just knock that plastic down. So just kind of lightly brush over it. It's not going to take a lot of pressure. It's just going to kind of knock that plastic down. If you want to do a little bit of finishing with it in some certain areas, maybe it just busts out a little bit more. Look at that. That edge there is pretty fine, and you can actually go with that. What I like to do is just kind of finish it off a little bit more. What I have here is one of those soft blocks that have the sandpaper on it already. They use it for like drywall, that kind of stuff. This is 180 grit. If you just want to finish it off a little bit more. The thing I like about the soft ones though, is they actually kind of push in and help form around that edge. So at this point, you can kind of go over it just a little bit. Smooths it right out. And the thing is, by the time it's done, it actually doesn't even look like you did any ironing or there's even a seam there. It's super slick, super simple, and it really finishes off the models really nice. You could go with the raw edge, or you could go with the finished edge. It's up to you, but I really like this, and if you actually take a look at it, it does add considerable strength. Now that it's melted it down to a plastic, it's like having a spar right across your leading edge. Simple stuff. Now, curves. I'm going to go in, I'm going to grab my pen. Now you can see how as the curve goes, because this stuff is paper, it's not very flexible in the fact that it doesn't want to bend in two directions. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add kerfs into the curve so that as it bends down, they kind of cross over each other and they're actually going to blend really nice. So in these areas here where you have a longer sort of curve, get a medium curve, you got a longer curve right here, and then it kind of tightens up a little bit. It's going to depend, that's going to dictate on what your spacing for these curves are going to be. So right here I have my hinge line, goes all the way up from top to bottom. We'll get to that in a bit. I have a pretty straight area here, so I'm not going to bother with that much, but I am going to start right here, and just because it is a medium curve or so, I'm going to go with like one every centimeter or ½ inch or so. Just add little curves. You don't want to go all the way through, you just want to break the paper, get into the foam, and bring it all the way to the outside. See, now I'm getting into a little bit of a larger spans curve. I'm going to actually space it out a little bit more. So give it a few of those. And just because when it looks like that it's going to curve more, you're going to tighten up the spacing between those curves. Not difficult stuff. And the cool thing is that by the time you actually iron it out and sand it a little bit, it tends to blend these curves in, so you don't really see them very much. All right, so curves are in on that side. I'll do the same for the other side. So you guys can get an idea. Got a pretty straight area right here. I'm going to go in, and from the other side, I can actually see where I put the curves in before. So if I was a little crazy about spacing or anything like that, I would do the same ones on top. Again, they're going to melt into a plastic, so it's not like you're weakening the foam. They'll actually help solidify and make it strong again. This is something that, again, I was on the forums, and you hear people mention it. You see it every once in a while in pics, but there was no real tutorial or anything that kind of really went into the explanation of it all. This is all stuff that I just kind of took little tips and tricks from here and there, and then I just experimented with scrap pieces of foam on my own. So